You can absolutely conquer whatever it is you choose to confront. In this show, we talk PTG, we listen and believe, we support and empower. Whether you have experienced domestic violence personally or not, someone you know has. Your circle of family, friends, acquaintances, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience domestic violence at some point in their life. Physical abuse is only one of the many forms of domestic violence. Survivors also report experience of verbal, emotional, spiritual, sexual, financial, electronic, and so much more. Domestic violence does not discriminate. It can leave you traumatized and devastated, mentally, emotionally, financially. You can find yourself homeless, jobless, helpless. The list can go on. There's blankets of insecurities, triggers, doubts, and other residual effects that become hurdles that impact our life as we do our best to move on. Many people associate butterflies with a sense of freedom. We've been taught along the way to focus on the transformation that takes place inside of the cocoon. I invite you to take a moment to conceptualize all the odds the caterpillar was up against and needed to defeat in order to get to a safe place, to build its cocoon and actually experience the transformation. My name is A. Garcia. I am a mother and survivor of a double attempted homicide. Now, I'm dedicating my life to take yours to the next level by experiencing post-traumatic growth to begin a new chapter in your life. Let's get started on this journey together. Confronting Domestic Violence is a 501c3. All contributions, volunteers, and sponsorships are welcomed. It takes a community to make a difference. Nobody should suffer alone. Please scan the QR code. Hey, Garcia here. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Confronting Domestic Violence, which is not intended to ignite any triggers. For what you want to conquer, you must confront. Today, I have a guest who is willing to openly share her exposure and her experience. Many times, it is another person's experience that becomes a resource for someone else. So, without any further ado, thank you, Brianna, and welcome to Confronting Domestic Violence.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. That's definitely something different. I'm a little shy.
Shy? What?
On camera, I could be shy, but I could talk anybody's head off in person. It's just camera. It makes me a little nervous.
We've all been there. Thank you for leaning in on that. So Brianna and I have had the opportunity to talk backstage, and she actually is a wealth of knowledge and information that am so excited to pick her brain about. She's recently graduated from college where she was living on campus in a dorm. And I told her I would save the other questions for this interview. So now that we're here, I want to ask so many questions about domestic violence on college campus.
Yes, it's domestic violence on college campuses is something that's definitely not spoken about, especially from a woman's standpoint. You see it, you hear about it, but as far as like resources and everything like that, I'm not sure, honestly, if they even have it because it's not something that's promoted. And they probably do have it, but because it's not promoted, I don't think women, females feel comfortable enough to even explain or share their experiences because they fear that they're judged, they're criticized, especially if it's from an athlete, if it's from a male, from their peers of a different stature. It's definitely hard, definitely on a college campus that it would be in a normal base surrounding, I find. Not sure because I've seen a situation on college campus, but because of the situation, us being women, we're told that we have to be strong. We're told that is acceptable for us to deal with a certain amount of things that we just bury it and just go on with our lives. And that kind of just triggers a lot of things for different women. But yeah.
So you're saying, so that I understand correctly. So basically when you enroll and when you're going through orientation, there's nothing that they talk to you about as it relates to resources or a chain of command and like communication or support in the arena, in the campus for anything that you may come across as it relates to sexual assault or violence at all?
Because it's been a while since I graduated, I feel like they do, but it's very brief. It's very brief. They talk about your experience on college campuses, what you're going to expect on college. They pretty much dive in on that, and that's their focus point. As far as their domestic violence, as far as resources and feeling comfortable enough, I want to say it's very brief. They'll just tell you you have public safety, and this is the number that you dial if you don't feel comfortable coming from your college dorm by yourself. But it's nothing fixated on domestic violence. It's just pretty much from a safety standpoint.
So hold on. So if you're afraid to leave the dorm by yourself, you could call security and be escorted?
Yes, that's as far as what I remember. That's as far as like the resources that they have. Yes, like you
Okay,
dial.
so they
Yeah.
So they do share that if you don't feel safe, that you can call security. But how about if something's actually happening real time?
And if something is happening real time, I don't think at that moment you're like, okay, I need to call public security. It's that fear at that moment. And honestly, it's like females you want to call, but at that moment, are you actually going to remember to call public safety? Or are you going to remember to call the cops? Which one are you going to remember?
911.
And 911. And then you have different posts where you could push a button and it'll alert. But in that moment, are you close enough to a post to even press that button? Is it close enough to the proximity for when you're walking? And is it something that's just during a day? Is it something that is during the night? And how fast are they able to get to you, especially if it's at night? So there's a lot of factors that play a part into that. I'm sorry that you hear the kids in the back.
That's okay. You're a woman. We wear so many hats, mom, titi, professional, whatever it is. Student, teacher, we have to deal with it.
Exactly. We wear many hats. So so that's the things that there's a lot of factors that play a part in that field specifically.
So how about, okay, so thank you for bringing that to light. So if you are dealing with maybe something not real time, but maybe it's something happening, like you're being stalked, or you're now starting to realize that the relationship that you're in, because on campus you're dating, you're living your life. Now,
exactly.
what if there is a recognition that you are in an abusive relationship, whether it's like mental, verbal, emotional, physical, whatever? Is there an outlet or resources that are available to you guys as college students?
I feel like every school should have it. But I'm gonna be all the way honest. Like I said, during orientation, it's very brief. And I feel like their focus points were more so just call public safety or find somebody that you're comfortable with talking to. So if you're living in a college dorm, then you'll talk to the resident assistant, and that's the one who monitors and is in charge. But then you got to keep that in mind that the person that's in charge is your peer, somebody your age, somebody. So how serious are they willing to take it? You know what I mean?
And what if they don't like you?
Exactly. And then what if it's that they don't like you, or what if it's somebody that they know? Then it's biased. So it's like, how far the chain of command are you willing to go? Jesus. Are you willing to go before that they actually get it handled? That's the only thing. But then depending on how serious the situation is, I think that you just have to follow the chain of command. But then how far is the chain of command before somebody actually hears you and believes what you're saying? You know what I mean?
So basically it's like relying on your peers and the people that you're dorming with to open up and talk about how to get through this.
Exactly. Pretty much that's what it's like. That's pretty much what it's like. Yeah.
So let me ask you a more personal question. Have any of your friends, have you been exposed to or a part of, I don't want to say a part of, have you been exposed to any of your personal friends or schoolmates, classmates that have that experience of form of domestic violence on campus?
Yeah, it was one situation. This girl, I wouldn't say that we are friends, but it's more so we were acquaintances and we all hung around the same friend group. And she was dating this guy that she knew back from home. And I don't remember the whole situation. I just remember that the situation, he showed up on college campus. He banged on her door, and it was more so it was me and 5 other girls, and we tried to protect her as far as the conversation. She was okay with having a conversation, but we pretty much were in the background to make sure nothing happened. when you're in that moment with somebody that you love and stuff like that, you trust that they're not going to explode. You trust that they're not going to do anything to harm you. And you can't anticipate what the next person is going to do when they're in a different emotional state than you are. But what ended up happening was he started to get a little too loud. He started to get a little too aggressive and hands-on. So we ended up bringing her with us and putting her in the car with us. Where it went left was when we were driving to pull off, he jumped on top of the car while we were driving. And this is a real life story. He jumped on top of the car while we're driving around the college campus, and he's on top of the car. And he finally fell off of the car when we made a right turn. And what, in a sense, you're trying to protect your friend, and we did what we could to support her. But then what went left is that she ended up going back. And I feel like as women, I don't judge, no harm, no foul, because in that moment, your priority is protecting that person. And when they're in a relationship for a long period of time, they don't see it because they're in it. And I understand. And then it was more, we should have just mind our business, because then it wouldn't have gone the way that it gone if we didn't interfere. It was one of those things. Then it's then moving forward, then you're walking on eggshells because you don't know whether or not to intervene, because you don't want to you don't want to overstep your boundaries as a friend. You know what I mean? So that experience, that definitely was an eye opener, because she didn't even go forward with saying anything to anybody else about it. So it was just one of those things. I think it just depends on the person, honestly.
You're really giving me so many flashbacks of my younger years. Even though I wasn't on
Yeah.
campus, I had a similar story.
Yeah.
I was the one that had to jump on the car, but that's because I was trying to save my child, but
Yeah.
from being kidnapped by the dad. But not only were you doing what you felt was the best thing for your friends, and then finding out later that she went back to him anyways.
Right.
But there's also that component of now you might be a target for the boyfriend because you already intervened. Not so much that you're ruining the friendship with your girl, but now you put yourself in harm's way with the guy.
And then it's when it becomes that, then it's unnecessary people that get involved when all you were doing was just trying to protect, because now you have to protect yourself. And when you have a certain amount of family members, brothers, and friends that are willing to protect you, you don't, it's almost as if you don't want to include anybody, because you don't want anybody else to get involved, because you don't want anybody else to get in trouble. You don't want anybody else to get hurt, especially when it had absolutely nothing to do with you. So I think that's a lot of the factors that play into why sometimes women, they pick and choose whether or not they want to speak out, or they just keep it to themselves because they don't want to include anybody else. They don't want anybody else to get hurt. They don't want anybody else to judge, criticize, or even if you're at that moment where you feel like you can't leave or you don't want to leave, then that's that criticism, that lashback. I just helped you, but you're going back. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, there's a lot that factors into there for sure. Just in general, the added confusion, right? Because now their experience, you're looking at yourself and saying, okay, what am I accepting or what am I not accepting? And then really based on what you're saying, it's almost like society paints this picture of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And there's this thing, I call it stigma. I don't want to call it a thing. I call it the stigma behind what you were saying. I don't want to speak out. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to be judged. I don't want all these opinions. I don't want my reputation to be something that it's not. And that's, I'm going to go back to, first of all, thank you for sharing that. Basically what you hear about public protection or safety is more so during orientation and does not talk about domestic violence at all.
Right.
And let me just clarify, is that the only time that it's talked about? Is it like an annual refresher, or is there like a class that like kind of talks to you again about it later on, or it's just during orientation and that's it?
I think it's more of an from what I remember, it was more of an orientation kind of thing, especially your freshman coming to campus, you're new, you don't know what to expect. That's something, orientation is just that, it's just happened once. And because the campus it was a decent size, I wasn't too sure about all the clubs that they have, but from what I remember, I don't remember them having a club that kind of just fixated and just focused on that. And I don't want to just fingers at the school or anything like that, but I guess they don't anticipate stuff like that happening as often. So they just talk about it in the beginning, and then just if it happens, then they just deal with it behind the scenes. It's not something that is brought to light unless the person brings it to light themselves. The school will pretty much just bury the hatchet within behind closed doors and just go like that. But I think it's more from an orientation standpoint. That's how they fixate on it. Yeah, I don't remember it ever just really just being talked about any further than that, because I was in a couple of clubs, but my clubs were based on science. Anything outside of that, I don't remember it. Just they had a women's club, but I didn't join the women's club, so I don't know if the women's club focused on that from that standpoint too. So it might have, but from the or administration standpoint, that's not something unless something happened on campus, then they'll send out an email. Somebody was attacked or somebody this, that, and the third occurred. Just be aware of your surroundings. That's pretty much all that they talked about from that point.
That's crazy. It's almost sounding like a fire drill. Like we don't expect a fire to happen, but it might happen. But at least there's fire drills. Like you are at least the alarm goes off. You know what to do. There's conduct. You know how to. And come on, we all hope that something doesn't happen, but we're all aware that it does. So how do we provide the training and the resources for you guys to actually retain, or even if it's a poster on the wall, like the fire exit, the emergency exit plan on the wall, there should be like emergency numbers to contact for these type of things that happen.
Now that I think about it, there was the police that is around the area ended up having, because I took the class. My friends and I took the class. They had a class that was based from self-defense. And it was like a one-time thing. I'm so sorry. It was just a one-time thing that they just came to campus and pretty much gave the basic self-defense. If anybody comes behind you, these are the techniques that you should use. If anybody chokes you, these are the techniques that you should use. If anybody is on top of you. So they gave like certain basic techniques that you should use in the case of a situation that you felt that you were comfortable in. Yeah.
Okay, so was that a simulation for students to partake in, or was this just a show, a presentation?
No, we partook in it. It was partake, like you signed up for it, but it was only a one-time thing. It wasn't something that happened all the time because we only took it that one time. And I don't ever remember hearing it on campus ever again. I think it was just something that the police officers in the area decided to put together for females. And a lot of females showed up to it and it was pretty much hands-on, but then that was pretty much it after that.
It sounds to me like the police decided to do this on their own and they came to the school to provide this. The outcome obviously showed the need because there was a lot of people that signed up, and then it just never came back on. It never came back to the campus.
Because I think that because I take self-defense on my own. I've taken it a couple times. So if I knew that was something that was an ongoing thing, that's something I would have participated in. I think it was just a one-time thing because that was my sophomore year of college. It was my sophomore year of college. So that was just like a one-time thing that they just brought on campus and anybody who wanted to participate could. And then that was just it after that.
Wow. So I want to share a couple of things because one of the things that we really focus on in confronting domestic violence is identifying gaps and seeing where they can be closed, right? Because we could talk about problems all day, but if we're not talking about the solution to the problem, how are we helping? There is a organization called RAD. It's Rape Aggression Defense. And I understand that they do go out to different colleges and that they do come out annually. So if you're at all interested or have still friends that are in college or want to partake in helping to make that difference, maybe that's something that could either be brought up to the campus, the college, the university, and or something that you can just reach out or the students can reach out and actually coordinate because it's offered all the time and free.
And it should be free. That should be something that somebody needs to pay for. Basic training should not be something, especially when you're already paying like $15,000 to $20,000 per year. Something that is good for safety, especially when you're away from home and then an emergency situation happens, your family can't get to you in a light speed, quick, fast, in a hurry. That's something that should be done annually a couple times, even if they could even make that into a club like a self-defense club or something like that, where women, not even just women, because domestic violence can happen to men as well. Anybody, it can happen to anybody. So you want students to feel safe especially when they're away from home, when they've never branched out before or anything like that. So you want that to happen. And I would advocate for something like that.
100%.
I definitely would. Yeah, especially from a female standpoint, because a lot of things happen behind the scenes on college campuses, especially with females. A lot of things happen.
And I want to share with you that the Violence Against Women's Act, which is a federal act that Biden just reenacted in March of this year, 2022, that is, The Violence Against Women Act covers college campuses. College campuses are supposed to have a program in place specifically for DV. And the Violence Against Women Act is a resource to go to if you are in college and you're experiencing issues and you don't have the resources or the outlets to seek that help and or assistance that you need in order to get through and beyond what you're currently going through.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's something that's new now. See, that's something that should be in place a long time ago.
I believe that it has been. I just know that the act had expired for a little while. And I'm not sure if that's what made it. I'm not sure if that made it dormant or not. I don't think that a federal act should be what requires a university to have these things for their students anyways. It should just be a common sense because so many things happen on the campus.
Especially kids, when you come to college campus, there's a lot of parties, there's a lot of drinking, and there's a lot. Sometimes, depending on students do drugs, putting yourself in situations that out of sometimes. So that's why I said I think also parents should definitely prep the kids, talk to the kids before they go to college, what to expect, what not to expect. Now in today's society, with my generation, like you can't even tell a guy that you don't want to talk to him without the guy assaulting the female. Or even if you have a kid with the person, you can't even tell them that you don't want to be with them without the girl turning up dead or anything like that. I think this is something that needs to be spoken about a lot more. Women need to be protected a lot more. I think that women are classified, like I said before, as having many hats, that when we're expected to be vulnerable is not normal for us. Or we feel like that we're not believed, nobody's going to believe us, or we're criticized, or why did you allow us to happen, or why were you in that situation in the first place? Doesn't matter.
Right. And let me ask you this. Do you think that if domestic violence was a part of a curriculum under health in high school, that would help greatly with that transition into college, like understanding?
I think it is. I think it would, because I think that when you're going into college, you're transitioning, and especially if it's not spoken about in your household because it's not exposed in the household, you don't know what to expect. You're dating guys, you're young, you want to have fun, you're free. You don't know what to expect when you're on a college, especially when you're young, and the older college students, they're going for the younger ones because they're considered easy. They're easy to manipulate. They're easy. That's what they consider them to be. So I think that having a class, and even from a parent standpoint, definitely talk to your kids, from male and female. Definitely talk. Even if they're going to community college and they're not, this is something that needs to be talked about, because it doesn't necessarily have to happen just on a college campus. You could be going for a walk in a park and it can happen. You could be walking with your child, it could happen. You could just be putting your child in a car seat and it could happen. So this is something that definitely needs to be spoken about, so they're aware, and that sucks that it is not. And I think that it's not spoken about if it doesn't happen in your household.
Right. And I would like to invite you back on, because now that you're actually in your profession, I would love to migrate over and get to that side, because I have so many questions in the industry and the field that you're in too, which I'm not going to give away right now because I want to have you back.
I appreciate you inviting me on. This is definitely something positive and advocate for it. I'm sorry about the 2-year-olds in the back. But I wear many hats, and this is one of them.
That's right. And thank you so much for your time. And I will be sending you a follow-up and an invite to come back so we could talk about now DV in the professional realm and how that is so impactful. And really, if you have any wounds to wisdom that you would like to share with all of our listeners, please go right ahead. And also, if you want to share where they can reach you, follow you, find you, you can do that as well.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Okay. Confronting Domestic Violence is a 501c3. All contributions, volunteers, and sponsorships are welcomed. It takes a community to make a difference. Nobody should suffer alone. Please scan the QR code.